You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Naruto Enters K-Pop Demon Hunters. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The night was cold. Sharp. Crisp enough to cut through the skin, enough to make the city lights shimmer like fragile, unreachable promises against the haze. From above, the streets glittered, alive and untouchable, but he knew better. He knew the city carried no comfort tonight, no mercy. He had just left the hospital that day. 3 years in a coma, trapped between life and death, the world moving on without him. Caretakers had hovered, pressing questions he could not answer. He grabbed his torn clothes, packed his meager belongings, and walked into the night. Legs quivering, chest burning, arms shaking with each step, but no matter how far he went, the memories followed, relentless. He found himself on the ledge. Only tonight, because of the date. His birthday. 3 years since his world had perished. 3 years since everything he loved had been taken from him. He sat, staring upward, chest tight, heartbeat hammering in his ears. Crazy how appealing life is when you're about to end it, he thought. Maybe no one truly sees the world until they're standing at the edge of leaving it. Slow tears traced his whispered cheeks, catching the dim city light as they fell. His blue eyes were red from grief, his nose raw from quiet sobs. He wept quietly, methodically, because this grief demanded practice. No one could comfort him. She had taken it all. His power, his home, his life. She had thrown him into a universe where he was nothing, strppd of everything that made him human. The memories came unbidden, sharp and unrelenting. She killed them. Impaled them with black energy. Faces, voices, screamed Sakura, Sasuke, Kakashi, all flashing in unrelenting pain. Sakura, her stubborn warmth, her laughter, the smile he had longed to earn, gone. Sasuke, brother in all but BLD, the bond stronger than anything else, shattered violently before his eyes. Kakashi, the one who had always believed in him, who had anchored him, whose calm had kept him whole, gone. Rage boiled red inside him, claws scratching his chest. He lunged, striking, breaking her nose in blind fury. How dare she? Humanity's last hope gone. And he had failed them all. Her gaze found him, cold and piercing. Primal fear surged. Fight or flee. Fight meant death. Flee meant survival, but at what cost? The calm voice inside him pleaded for reason, but she had stolen that too. A portal shimmered ahead. Without hesitation, he jumped. Leaving everything. His world died behind him. The fall came next, the hard concrete smashing into him, bile rising in his mouth. He scrambled to his feet, stumbled across the street, never saw the car until it hit him. Darkness swallowed him. The city around him fractured. Asphalt became shadow. Streetlights stabbed. Shadows twisted into hands and faces, crawling, whispering accusations. Every memory collided with the present. Sakura's laughter became screams. Sasuke's calm became bloodied horror. Kakashi's trust became silent judgment. Guilt gnawed at every nerve. You failed. You were not enough. His body convulsed. Limbs shook violently. Vision flickered. Pain exploded in every joint, every muscle, but he moved anyway, propelled by something primal: fear, grief, rage. Time dissolved. Past and present collided. Faces, screams, losses, hallucinations, they were everywhere and nowhere. Heart pounding, breath burning, teeth chattering, vision swimming with red, blue, black. Every thought a blade. Every step agony. And still he moved. Because to stop meant surrendering entirely, to face the full weight of what he had lost. He could not. Not yet. Not ever. He collapsed, and when he awoke, sterile lights cut through his vision. The doctors told him he had been in a coma for 3 years. And now, on this day, on this ledge, he could take it no more. No hope remained. No reason to go on. With a whispered apology to the friends he had lost, to the world he had failed, to himself he let go. Tonight, on this ledge, he could take it no more. No hope remained. No reason to go on. With a whispered apology to the friends he had lost, to the world he had failed, to himself he let go. He jumped. He flew through the air, finally at peace. The pavement came fast beneath him, and a small, trembling smile broke through his grief. "I'm coming, guys," he whispered, eyes closing. He hit the ground, expecting darkness. Expecting never to open his eyes again. But looking down, he saw red chakra cushioning his fall. The smell of ozone and scorched air filled his nostrils. Dust and grit scratched his cheeks. Anger erupted, jagged and sharp. So now I can't even die, huh? Cursed to live. Red patterns crawled across his skin, glowing, writhing, alive. He could feel the malice of it seeping into him, but it was his. All of it. Without Kurama, his demonic energy was unbound, chaotic, entirely his own. And then it hit him, the full, absurd weight of it. He threw back his head and laughed. Not a clean laugh. Splintered. Jagged. Echoing off empty streets, bouncing off puddles reflecting neon light. A laugh of irony. A laugh of a prisoner finally snapping. But as the laughter tore through him, it fractured further. It cracked. It splintered into sobs, deep, ragged, uncontrollable. Shoulders shaking, he clawed at his face. Tears streamed down his whispered cheeks. Rain mixed with them, making tracks of red in the pale light of neon. And then the sobs twisted into something hotter, heavier. Anger. Raw, primal, violent anger. He threw his head back and screamed. Not a human scream. Not a sane scream. A desperate, animalistic wail, tearing from deep in his chest, ragged and broken. It clawed at the night, shrieking in grief, rage, and disbelief. Red energy erupted from him in jagged spikes, stabbing the air, cracking pavement, rattling metal signs. Windows shattered in buildings blocks away. Streetlights bent and flickered, writhing under the pressure. Trash scattered into the wind. The sky itself seemed to quiver, thick with heat and malice, vibrating with the force of his fury. The laugh had died. The sobs had burned themselves out. What remained was pure, unyielding, animalistic fury, a man alive, broken, fully awake. The city trembled, a monument to his grief, loss, and untethered wrath. He was alive. And he was trapped. He felt something in his pocket. Hands trembling, he pulled it out. It was his headband. Memories slammed into him like a tidal wave. The night Irika had given it to him. The warmth, pride, the first time someone had truly accepted him. He remembered the way the lamp cast his mentor's shadow over the walls. He had been so happy. Irika's kind, steady eyes telling him he believed in his dream to be the greatest Hokage. He remembered shouting it to the rooftops, reckless, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'll be the greatest Hokage, so everyone will have to accept me." They were all gone now. All of them. Sakura. Sasuke. Kakashi. Irika. His dream had died with them. He had failed. And now he was trapped in this new world, forced to endure. He clenched the headband, anger and sorrow twisting inside him. I am no longer Naruto Uzumaki. I don't deserve that name. I'm Menma, he said, voice low, cold, final. Instinctively, fire erupted from his palm. The flames licked the air and swallowed the headband, melting the last tangible connection to his home, past, identity. Heat licked his skin. He felt the roughness of the concrete under his shoes and smelled the acrid tang of burning cloth. He watched it burn, feeling a strange weight lift even as his chest ached. When the fire died, he dropped his hand. He walked away, leaving his past self behind. He walked on, weaving through crowded streets, the hum of the city pressing in from all sides. Neon signs flickered above, reflected in the slick asphalt from a recent rain. Street vendors called out over the chatter of pedestrians, scooters zipped through alleyways. The smell of grilled meat and wet asphalt mixed in the humid air. He kept his head down, wishing no one would notice him. Please just don't look. To his relief, even in the middle of the crowd, no one seemed to see him. In fact, they went out of their way to steer clear, brushing past as if he weren't there. He could sense their subtle unease, the faint tension in their shoulders when he passed. Am I doing this? He thought. Then he glanced at his arms and saw an aura of red energy radiating from the patterns. It carried a malicious edge, entirely his own. His gaze swept upward. Towering glass and steel buildings mirrored the neon glow back onto the streets. Giant screens flashed commercials, a blur of color and motion, painting the sidewalks in shifting light. Reflections danced in puddles. Streetlights sputtered. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. I wonder what else I can do here, he murmured. Curious, he willed his hospital gown to change. In an instant, the plain fabric melted away and reformed into a maroon-red shirt, black jeans, and white sneakers. A small surge of satisfaction shot through him. He noticed something else. If he didn't use his powers, the crimson patterns faded from his skin, and his eyes returned to blue. The energy was tied to him, to his emotions, to the way he chose to wield it or ignore it. For the first time since leaving his old world, he felt a flicker of control. A flicker of freedom. Maybe he could survive. Deep underground, an ancient demon king felt a pulse of demonic energy from above. But it wasn't any of his subordinates. Who are you? Jinhua thought, a shiver of unease crawling down his spine. He could feel it strong enough to change the course of history. And it wasn't under his control. How could he use this? He was patient. Centuries had taught him the value of waiting. I will find out who you are, he vowed silently. And rest assured you will kneel. Seline shivered as a wave of malice rolled over her. For a demon to be that strong, she didn't know if Huntress could handle it. And with Rumi, no. They would make the honeymoon golden, and everything would be fixed. She had to believe that. Because if she didn't, she wouldn't be able to look herself in the mirror. A chill ran down her spine. Her pulse quickened, fingers tightening on her coat as the shadows of nearby buildings stretched over her. I promise, Miyang, she whispered, determination trembling in her voice, I will save her. And the girls, they'll finish what we started. He woke up briefly, blinking against the early sun, forgetting where he was for a heartbeat. The rooftop beneath him was warm from the morning light, rough under his palms, the metal railing cold against his cheek. Then it all returned: the jump, the fall, the red energy that had saved him, the grief, the rage, the absurd weight of it all. He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. The only way through this, one day at a time. He rose, stretching his legs, feeling the small aches and stiffness of muscles unused for so long. The wind brushed his face as he walked to the edge. He didn't hesitate, he didn't need to. Jumping was second nature now. Crimson energy flared softly beneath his skin, coiling and twisting, coaxing him down gently, cushioning the fall. Pedestrians below moved past, oblivious, the city humming around him as if he weren't even there. Not Konoha. Not green. Not quiet. The thought flitted through his mind. But alive. Unique. Appealing in its own way. I could get used to this anonymity. The streets were stirring. Neon signs still glowed faintly, reflecting in puddles left from a morning drizzle. Steam curled from manholes, carrying the sharp scent of hot asphalt and street food. Street vendors called out, hawking skewers and sweet pastries. Scooters zipped through narrow alleyways. The scent of grilled meat, fried dumplings, and soy sauce blended into a rich urban perfume. Menma let his senses heighten subtly, channeling energy to sharpen his hearing. Every footstep, every clatter of a tray, every faint laugh from a child crisply, distinctively, like someone had polished the city's sound just for him. He came to a small park, instinctively guided to a gnarly oak at its edge. Its thick, twisted trunk rose like a sentinel, branches stretching toward the sky like gnarled fingers. Sunlight spilled through leaves, scattering patterns of gold and green across the pavement, warming his face as it moved. He crouched before it, hands hovering over the bark. Red energy coiled beneath his skin, thrumming gently in response to his intent. Just initials. The first letters burned briefly into the wood, glowing crimson before sinking to black. SSK Sakura. Sasuke. Kakashi. Irika. Memories flooded him, Hinata's gentle smile, Shino's stoic calm, bushy brow Sensei's strict scolding, Chuji's laughter, Tenten's teasing, Niji's sharp observations, Kiba's playful growls, Shikamaru's clever frown. One by one, he etched initials for the leaf, the hidden sand, the hidden mist, and the hidden stone. By the time he was done, almost the entire trunk was covered in black and crimson initials, a mosaic of love, pain, and remembrance. He rested against the trunk, closing his eyes. Children's laughter drifted from the playground nearby, distant but grounding, a reminder that the world moved on regardless of loss. Birds flitted overhead, their chirps mingling with the hum of traffic in the distance. This city, it has life. I can walk among it. I can survive. One day at a time. Rising slowly, he moved toward the streets, weaving through the crowds with careful awareness. He tried to find work, anything to earn a meal. Experience? None. Resume? Not a chance. Rejection after rejection piled up, hollowing his stomach and weighing his feet. I'm sorry, we're not hiring right now, one shopkeeper said, barely looking up. Can you start immediately? No references. I'm sorry, another sighed, pushing him gently out the door. He shook his head, frustration curling in his stomach. What am I supposed to do? Hunger gnawed. His stomach grumbled like an untamed beast. He hugged his arms around himself, passing countless cafes, stores, offices that didn't want him. The city's bustle felt heavier with every step, faces blurring past like ghosts. Then a sign caught his eye, now hiring Ichiraku Ramen. A small smile tugged at his lips. If there's one thing I know, I can do this. The warm, steamy air hit him as he entered, and for a heartbeat, he was a child again. He smelled the broth simmering gently, saw the noodles piled high, heard the clatter of bowls and chopsticks on the counter. Memories rushed in 10-year-old him perched on a stool at Tucci's shop, hands wrapped around a steaming bowl. Careful, the old man had said. It's hot. Friends had laughed, lanterns flickered softly, the air was warm and fragrant. Can I help you? The owner asked, brow furrowed. I can cook. I've done this before. I know Ichiraku. His voice cracked slightly, hesitant but honest. The owner's frown deepened. No resume, no references. Why should I? Menma's hands moved instinctively. Noodles boiled perfectly. Broth simmered, thick with umami and warmth. Garnishes placed carefully, bowls sliding to the counter with a soft clink. The aroma filled the small shop, comforting, familiar. Customers passing by paused, inhaling deeply. Hey, this smells amazing. You make this? One asked. Yes, Menma said, almost shyly. A small smile appeared, fleeting but real. It touched his eyes. The owner studied him, then slowly nodded. You start tomorrow. Early. Relief pooled in Menma's chest. A thread of normalcy tugged him forward for the first time since he had left his old world. Over the next several months, Menma settled into a rhythm. Early mornings chopping vegetables, simmering broth, serving customers. Regulars came, greeted him, complimented his work. Each smile, each nod, each satisfied sigh reinforced that he could exist here, even if this world wasn't the one he remembered. He'd wipe down the counter after a busy lunch and glance out the window. Neon lights began to flicker in the late afternoon. Reflections danced across wet asphalt. The hum of cars, the rumble of trains, the distant siren all stitched together a rhythm of life. It wasn't green fields or quiet rivers, but it had a pulse. And maybe I can belong here. Then one evening, after closing, he felt it, a pulse of energy, alive and deliberate. It stirred in his chest. Deep underground, Jinma felt it too, not a subordinate, not a creation, not something he could control. Something new. Dangerous. The emissary appeared, a demon, black and silent, moving through the shadows toward Menma. Jinma wishes to speak. Join, or be destroyed, it hissed. Menma didn't flinch. Red energy flared from his skin, twisting and alive. Eyes sharpened, teeth elongated slightly, whiskers darkened. The patterns glowed jagged and crimson. In an instant, the demon lunged. Menma's movements were fluid, effortless. Energy lashed out like crimson lightning, sending the creature crashing into the wall. Sparks flew, illuminating the alley's grime. Another strike, and the demon dissipated, ashes scattered on the wind. Too easy. He exhaled, letting the energy settle. Its glow felt gentle, comforting, almost like a friend. He didn't know what it was, didn't know its purpose, but he could feel its warmth brushing against him, a quiet reassurance that not everything in this city was cruel. One day at a time, he whispered. Step by step. Survive. That's enough for now. The days began to blur, stretching into weeks and folding into months, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Menma felt a change taking root, a small, fragile shift towards something better. The first time Menma laughs, really laughs, it catches even him off guard. A quick, breathless sound slips out before he can choke it back. Miss Huang stands over him with a ladle raised like a weapon, threatening to smack him for chopping scallions too thick. Careful. You'll give me a heart attack, she hisses, eyes narrowing. He mutters something under his breath, something unintelligible even to himself, and suddenly the whole shop is grinning. The quiet, wary boy has cracked, just a little, and everyone notices. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens in the noise, the clang of pots, the hiss of broth, the chime of the front door bell marking the rhythm of the day. By the end of his first week, he knows where the bowls go, by the end of the second, he moves without thinking, almost as if the shop itself guides him. When the leaves outside begin to turn crimson and gold, the shop is no longer a place he works in, it's something he moves with, something alive, something he belongs to. Miss Huang's voice never softens, but Menma learns to hear the warmth hidden beneath the bite. Too much miso. You'll drown the flavor, she snaps one afternoon, the sweat running down his forehead, hands flying to adjust the broth. He nods, correcting it, and she walks past, ladle clanging against a bowl. Hours later, when the rush subsides, she slides a small bowl across the counter. Eat before you faint, boy. He doesn't reply. He just eats, slowly, savoring the warmth that seeps into his chest, the little safety it brings. Miss Xu becomes his shadow in words, if not in steps. Perched on her favorite stool, she talks endlessly about Tiger, Bao, and Little Bean, her 3 cats who apparently run her house more efficiently than she does. Menma listens without listening, until one rainy night he blurts. Tiger probably hid under the table, right? He's got that coward look. Her face lights up, bright enough to make him want to vanish into the floor. And yet the next night, he finds himself asking about Bao, imagining the little cat clambering up curtains, and the conversation flows naturally, a gentle tether tying him to someone who notices him. Then there's Ian, heavier and rougher than he appears. Menma learns this the hard way after dragging him out of the shop for the 4th time, arms slung over his shoulders. Ian reeks of liquor and loss, muttering about wars past and mistakes that sting still. You always save me, Ian slurs once, swaying on the sidewalk. Why? You don't even know me, kid. Menma doesn't reply. He calls a cab, steadies him until the man is safely inside. Somehow, Ian starts showing up more on shifts, and Menma notices he trusts him. He's careful not to take it for granted. Buford, the landlord, is rough around every edge. He curses like a sailor and smokes like a chimney. His apartment building is a mess, but he likes his tenants and rarely forgets them. Menma discovers this the night the plumbing bursts, wrench in hand, Buford grumbling beside him. Hold it there, tight. No, not like that. Christ, kid, has no one ever shown you a DMN thing? Menma shrugs, bracing harder. By midnight, the pipe is fixed. Buford doesn't say much, but rent is mysteriously $10 cheaper the next month. Menma notes the silent approval, feeling another thread of attachment tying him to this place. Seasons drift past. Lanterns rise in the streets, festival drums beating faintly even in the alleyways. Miss Huang drags him outside one evening when the lights blaze, shoving him toward a small crowd of children. Try a dumpling. Don't look like a ghost, she teases. Children tug at his hands, Miss Shu pushes a dumpling into his mouth before he can protest. Ian slaps him on the back, spilling a little sake, laughing at his startled expression. Menma keeps his hood up, shoulders hunched, but for a few hours, he's just part of the noise, part of the warmth. And he laughs again, small, raw, untrained, but real. The kind of laugh that makes the whole group lean closer just to hear it. The gifts come slowly. Knitted socks that he can't bring himself to take off at night. An old coat hung on his door by someone thoughtful. Extra broth, always his favorite, though Miss Huang swears it's coincidence. Menma doesn't know how to repay it, and so he simply accepts, letting himself soak in the small kindnesses, like a stray finally learning the hands that reach out won't strike. And somewhere in all that noise, cats, sake, broken pipes, noodle bowls, the boy called Menma begins to feel less like a shadow and more like someone alive. Not a hero, not a monster, not even Naruto anymore, but a tired kid who has finally found the rhythm of life and the sound of people who care enough to notice. He watches the streets at night through the shop window, the hum of neon, the soft rhythm of cars, the occasional laughter drifting from the alleyways. Tokyo pulses around him, alive, chaotic, welcoming him quietly into its fold. The Han moon hangs above, silver, warm, a friend he doesn't understand yet, a presence that reassures him in ways words cannot. He doesn't know what it is, only that it feels like safety. One day at a time. Step by step. Breath by breath. Small victories stacking like bricks beneath him. He moves through his life gently, savoring the tiny gestures, Miss Sue's chuckle when he makes a clever joke, Ian leaning on him for support after another long night, Buford's rough but approving nod, Miss Huang's quiet satisfaction when the shop runs smoothly. He begins to anticipate the laughter, the warmth, the gestures of care. And in these small, fractured moments of ordinary life, Menma allows himself to hope. Not hope for the world, not hope for the past, but hope for now. For the ramen shop. For people who see him. And somewhere inside, the red energy that still marks him waits quietly. It doesn't need to roar. Not yet. For once, Menma lets it sleep while he drinks broth, laughs with the children, sweats over simmering noodles, and allows himself to exist in a world that is finally warm. This is what 6 months feels like. Not counted, not marked, not noted in calendars or logs, but lived. felt. Breathing, messy, human, loved. The days had started to blur, folding into one another like the steam rising from his bowls of ramen, and Menma felt a slow, almost imperceptible shift in himself. Tired but lighter, he walked home after a long shift, the evening air crisp against his skin. Gone for the day. Miss Huang's voice carried from the shop doorway, warm and teasing. Yeah, I'm heading out, he replied, rubbing the fatigue from his shoulders. She shook her head with a sly smile. Hold up. He stopped, hands in his pockets, curious. Miss Huang emerged, an envelope in hand. He blinked at her. For you, she said softly, almost shyly. I want you to have this. I won't be around forever. Menma opened it slowly. His eyes widened. The papers inside contracts, signatures, legalities declared him co-owner of Ichiraku Ramen. Are you serious? He asked, voice catching. As serious as the smell of miso in the morning, she replied with a wink. Relief, pride, and a warmth he hadn't felt in years hit him all at once. Without thinking, he stepped forward and wrapped her in a cheerful hug. For a brief moment, the war, the loss, the endless nights of solitude, all of it felt impossibly far away. Menma finally allowed himself a smile, the kind he hadn't managed in 5 years, the kind that reached his eyes. He walked off, light on his feet, heart full, imagining the small life he was building, imagining a future where he could belong. Halfway home, that fragile sense of peace shattered. A scream pierced the evening. Mrs. Huang. Menma's legs bolted on instinct. Ahead, shadows flitted in the alley. A gunshot cracked the air, sharp, unforgiving. He ran faster, chest pounding, feet slamming the pavement. Around the corner, he saw her Miss Huang on the ground, and a masked figure sprinting away with a bag of cash. Rage, pure and sharp, ignited inside him. Red energy surged through his veins, coiling like living fire beneath his skin. He lashed out. Crimson claws shot from his hands, tearing through the air with a hiss of heat and power. They struck the thief mid-stride. Flesh and cloth incinerated in a flash of red energy, the bag of cash tumbling to the ground. Smoke spiraled upward, curling around his hands as his eyes glowed with the fury that had lain dormant for months. Menma didn't pause to think. He sprinted forward, red patterns rippling across his skin, every fiber of him focused on protecting the life he had finally begun to claim. Menma stood over the body of the thief, chest heaving, smoke still rising from the claws that had ripped through him. The smell of scorched flesh clung to the air. He blinked and realized the figure wasn't some hardened criminal. It was a boy. No older than 14. Thin, pale. His eyes burned with the same wild glow Menma saw in the mirror sometimes. Demon BLD. Menma's rage faltered, giving way to a hollow ache. He dropped to his knees beside the boy, clutching at the front of his shirt. Why? He rasped. Why do this? The boy coughed, BLD trickling from his lips. His voice was barely a whisper. Jinma is tired of waiting for you. His gaze flickered with a cruel sort of knowing. You're a demon. Why are you playing human? The words hit like a blade in the gut. Menma froze, unable to breathe. The boy exhaled one last shuddering breath, body going limp in his hands. Behind him, a softer, weaker voice broke through. Menma. He spun around. Miss Huang lay slumped against the wall, BLD soaking through her blouse. Her breaths were shallow, but she smiled gentle, motherly, even now. You were like a son to me, she whispered. Her hand trembled as it brushed his arm. Then the strength left her fingers, and she went still. No, his voice cracked. No, no, no. The scream tore out of him raw, scraping against his throat until it was more beast than human. His vision blurred with tears as his body betrayed him, his eyes blazing blue, then red, then snapping into a deep, burning violet. Patterns across his skin ignited, shifting from crimson to a furious purple flame. His nails lengthened, jagged and black, as his chakra surged uncontrolled. Was he not allowed to be happy? Did life hate him this much? Why did he lose everyone he ever loved? The grief hollowed him out, then filled him with something worse. His body shook as energy flared outward, vibrating so violently that the concrete beneath his feet cracked and smoldered. The very air rippled around him, humming with rage and sorrow that had no outlet. His gaze dropped to the pavement, the Han-moon seal etched into the ground beneath the shop. The energy radiating from him made it quake, shimmer, fracture. No, stop, Menma tried to hold it in, but his power flared wilder, stronger. The seal shattered. Blue light burst into shards, scattering like broken glass across the night. The ground quaked under his knees, a void yawning beneath him as if the world itself recoiled from what he had become. His tears ran hot and endless, cutting through the violet glow on his face. It wasn't just losing Miss Huang. It wasn't just killing that boy. It was losing two worlds at once, the family he had found, and the fragile mask of humanity he had been clinging to. He cried as if he had lost everything all over again. And maybe he had. He stumbled back, every step heavy, boots scraping against the cracked pavement. The violet energy still pulsed faintly beneath his skin, a lingering echo of the explosion of grief and rage. He couldn't play by their rules. Not tonight. Not ever. The streets around him were silent, oblivious to the storm contained in his chest. He narrowed his focus, letting the world blur into nothing but the pull beneath his feet. Deep, deep underground, he reached with his senses, weaving through layers of stone, magma veins, and hidden catacombs, until he found it, the scent, the pulse, the unmistakable signature of the one who had orchestrated this chaos. Jinma. You think this is a game, he muttered, voice low and lethal, but it's not. His fingers curled, nails clicking against his palms as red energy twined around them like living fire. I'm coming for you, BSTRD. The city night wrapped around him as he moved, shadows sliding under his steps, alleys swallowing the remnants of his tears. The shattered Han-moon shards glimmered faintly in the back of his mind, a reminder of what he had lost but also a marker of what he would no longer surrender. He stalked off into the night, silent but alive, every heartbeat a promise of retribution. Jinma had pushed him this far, but Menma was done waiting. The hunter had become the storm. And the night was his. The Huntress girls were sprawled across the plain's small galley, laughing and picking at their pre-show food. Mira was noisily chewing a sushi roll while Zoey attempted to stack pieces on Rumi's plate like some ridiculous tower. Suddenly, the phone buzzed. It's Bobby. Be quiet, Rumi hissed, grabbing the device before the others could snatch it. Mira rolled her eyes mid-chew as Rumi tapped the screen. Hey, Bobby. What's up? On the small video screen, their manager's anxious face appeared. What are you all doing? The show is about to start, he barked. But before he could continue, a fan from the concert's VIP section swooped in, snatching the phone and tossing it back and forth like a game of hot potato. The girls giggled, batting at the device as each fan insisted on talking to them. Finally, Bobby got the phone back. We're just in the plane, getting our pre-show ramen, they said in unison, eyebrows raised. Confusion flitted across Bobby's face. Pre-show what? About the show. The plane is in the air right now, he wailed, flailing like the world had tipped off its axis. Keep your shirt on. We'll be there in 3 minutes, Rumi said, sliding past the flight crew with effortless authority. The air on the plane shifted. A cold, sharp curl of energy slithered through the cabin, making the hair on Rumi's arms rise. So, let's cut this short, your demons, right? Rumi said, her voice calm, deliberate, deadly. What are you talking about? The flight attendant asked, panic lacing her words. Oh, patterns, Mira said, scowling, stepping forward and gripping the woman's arm. The faint, glowing markings on the attendant's skin were undeniable now. Before anyone could react, a chorus of high-pitched screeches erupted. "We are gonna eat your fans," the demons shouted, twisted shapes lunging down the aisles. The Huntress girls moved as one. Rumi's sword flashed in the overhead light, Myra's gokdu spun and struck, and Zoey's kunai shimmered with magical energy. The cabin became a choreography of destruction and music, metal and glass scattering, fans ducking for cover, the girls performing with precision and fluidity. Within minutes, the demons were defeated, disintegrating into wisps of pink smoke, drifting harmlessly toward the ceiling. The chaos ended as suddenly as it began. The cabin fell silent, save for the heavy breaths of fans and crew. The girls exhaled together, their bodies relaxing, muscles still humming with the aftershock of their fight. Then, without a word, they leapt from the plane, landed flawlessly on the stage waiting below. The stage was empty, the audience hushed in anticipation, the lights dimmed. For a heartbeat, everything was still. And then the music swelled. The girls moved in perfect synchrony, their voices rising, filling the air with a promise of survival, with rhythm and life after the chaos. The final chorus rang out, every note sharp, every movement precise. The crowd erupted, cheers and applause rippling like a wave across the venue. Lights shimmered over the stage, reflecting off costumes, glitter, and sweat. For a moment, the world felt whole again. Then Rumi's gaze lifted. There it was, the Han moon. But it wasn't the comforting golden glow she had imagined. Jagged cracks ran through its surface, red veins spreading like bleeding scars, broken needles radiating outward. Her chest tightened as a chill wound through her. She whispered, almost to herself, "No, no." The golden warmth she had hoped for, the symbol of unity and protection, was gone. And in its place, a fractured warning pulsed faintly against the night sky. Mira and Zoey left the stage, buzzing with excitement, the adrenaline of performance still coursing through them. Backstage, Bobby was already hovering, tablet in hand, trying to convince them to take a proper vacation. "You all have been on the road for weeks. Why not take a break?" he urged, exasperation in his voice. Zoey waved him off, grinning. "We have the best spot in town to relax." Bobby blinked, mystified. "What is that?" he asked. A 5-star hotel, spa treatments, city tours. He'd offered it all, and they were turning him down. "Our couch!" Mira and Zoey yelled in unison, giggling as they darted toward their shared room. But their laughter and light-hearted energy hit a sudden wall. Rumi was there, standing in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide and fixed. The golden warmth they had seen earlier, the post-show relief, it was gone from her expression. Something had changed. The air between them shifted, heavier, charged with unspoken fear. Even the hum of the stage lights and scattered backstage chatter seemed to quiet around her. Mira and Zoey froze, their smiles fading. "Rumi, what is it?" Zoey asked cautiously, stepping closer. Rumi swallowed, the words catching in her throat. She barely managed to whisper, "The Han moon, it's shattered." Seline walked the winding path, her steps dragging as if the earth itself resisted her return. Ahead loomed the Han moon. Once radiant, once whole, now shattered. Its silver-white glow lay in jagged shards, held together by something vile. Red energy clung like diseased vines, binding the fragments with a grotesque mockery of healing. It wasn't mending. It was rotting shut. Her chest tightened as she drew closer to the tree. The tree where it all began. Where she, Ryu Young, and Kosilia had been chosen, sworn to guard, to seal, to repair the Han moon whenever it faltered. That had been their burden. Their duty. And now all of it lay in ruin. Her throat burned as memories surged. Was it not enough? Was it not enough that she had killed Guile, Rumi's father, believing it would stop the prophecy from ever taking shape? Ryu had died because of that choice, his heart broken, his spirit unable to carry the weight of betrayal. Kosilia had long been gone. And Seline, left alone, carried the guilt of it all. She had promised Ryu. She had promised herself. She would save Rumi. But the Han moon was destroyed, and the prophecy had already begun unraveling before her eyes. Her trembling hand brushed the bark of the ancient tree. Almost instinctively, her lips parted, and she sang in a broken whisper. We are hunters, voices strong. Slaying demons with our song. Fix the world and make it right. When darkness finally meets the light. Her voice faltered. There was more. Verses meant only for the chosen. Words she had prayed never to speak. Still, the song slipped out, hushed and raw. A demon shall bleed and cry. Hunters, demons reunite. Destroy the Han moon, make it new. Two of kind shall have vows renewed. The sound left her shaking. Impossible. Demons couldn't weep. They couldn't change. They were damned beyond redemption. And yet Rumi was half demon. Half human. And the shattered Han moon before her was proof enough that half the prophecy was already alive. You seem deep in thought, came a voice beside her, calm, weathered. Familiar. She didn't flinch. Only one person would come to her here. Her jaw tightened. You knew this would happen, didn't you? That's why you told me killing Guile wouldn't work, she said, her voice sharp with old anger. The elder's reply was quiet, but it cut through her like glass. And yet you didn't listen. And now Rumi is an orphan. That's not my fault. Seline snapped, spinning toward him. Her fury burned only for a heartbeat before it withered beneath his gaze, those cold, purple-ringed eyes that had always seemed to see through her. Her shoulders sagged. Her voice broke to a whisper. I didn't know Ryu would die. The words crumbled in her mouth. Heavy. Irrevocable. Nothing we can do about it, he said, his tone weighted with inevitability. The prophecy has begun. Seline's desperation broke loose. Is there anything you can do to help Rumi? She doesn't deserve this. Her voice cracked, a raw plea, almost childlike. I'm sorry, he said softly, sorrow threaded through each word. I cannot interfere. Before she could answer, his form wavered, dissolving into mist until nothing remained. Seline's knees buckled. She slid down the tree, bark scraping against her back as tears welled. Her whisper barely stirred the night air. Please be careful, Rumi. A silence heavier than any she had known followed. I failed you, Ryu. The funeral was short, just him and the priest. Menma had promised himself he wouldn't cry. He swore he'd stay strong, that he'd honor her by holding steady. But when the priest asked if he was family, the words tore something loose inside him. His throat closed up. His lips trembled. And before he could stop himself, tears poured down his cheeks, his violet eyes burning. Business partner, he choked out. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. A cruel reduction of what she truly was. Huang wasn't just a boss. He saw her sitting across from him in the corner ramen shop, steam rising between them, her brows softened in a way few others ever saw. He remembered the long nights when she stayed at the studio, just to make sure he didn't push himself into collapse. He remembered her scolding sharp, merciless, but then the way she'd leave a cup of tea at his elbow, pretending it wasn't from her. He remembered her laugh, rare and quick, like sunlight through storm clouds. She was iron and warmth in one. Strict, perfectionist, untouchable to others but to him. Family. That's what she was. The closest thing he'd ever had to it. He had never known a mother's love, never felt that safety, but with Huang, he imagined it. He believed it. When the dirt covered her coffin, his body gave out. He fell to his knees, the earth cold and unyielding beneath him. His hands dug into the soil, his shoulders shaking. The priest's words of comfort drifted past unheard. One by one, everyone left. But Menma stayed. When the silence deepened and only the wind moved through the trees, he reached out with trembling fingers. He conjured a glass flower, sculpting it with fragile precision. Blue for her favorite color. For his eyes, which she always said carried too much sorrow. Around it, he wrapped red, a protective shell, encasing the delicate bloom the way he should have encased her. But he hadn't. He had failed her. Too distracted. Too careless. Not vigilant enough. As long as Ji-ma is down there, he whispered hoarsely, I'll never have a family to call my own. A bitter smile ghosted his lips. Ji-ma would never take anything from him again. He swore it. Then something shifted. The glass in his hands shimmered. The flower bent, warped, rippled like molten light. Before his widening eyes, the petals stretched and became fur, 9 fiery tails blooming one by one, burning crimson against the dusk. A kitsune, radiant and impossibly alive, stood in his palms. Menma's breath caught. His chest tightened as the creature tilted its head, almost knowingly, almost kindly. Huang, his voice broke. You were too good for me. The kitsune flickered, fading as quickly as it came, collapsing back into the fragile flower. Menma cradled it against his chest, reverent. A piece of her, left behind for him. Her gift. Her memory. Her final lesson. With a long, shuddering breath, he rose to his feet. He held the flower close and turned from the graveyard, carrying her with him into the night. Menma stepped across the threshold, the familiar creak of the wooden floorboards echoing in the still air. The scent of the shop lingered, faint but unmistakable ginger, garlic, and the memory of simmering broth. It was almost a cruel reminder, Huang had been here, moving through this space, shaping it, nurturing it. And now, it was all his. His fingers traced the edge of the counter, polished smooth from years of work and care. He lingered there longer than necessary, as if touching it could connect him to her warmth, to the maternal patience she had shown him. The bowls stacked neatly on the shelves gleamed in the soft overhead light, untouched since the last rush. Even the ladle holder, still slightly bent from her insistence that he keep it straight, spoke of her presence. A shiver ran through him. For a long moment, he just stood, letting the silence envelop him. It was heavy but honest. This space, so full of life before, now carried a stillness that demanded attention. And yet, in that stillness, he felt the pulse of the shop, a rhythm of love and care, like a heartbeat lingering in the walls. He moved to the storage shelves, opening the doors slowly. Pots and pans, spices, and noodles, everything in its place. He could almost hear her voice, scolding him for being sloppy or for leaving a bowl too close to the edge. A dry laugh escaped him, tinged with sorrow. Menma walked to the small back room, where Huang used to keep her notes and recipes. He knelt, flipping through the pages with reverence, memorizing the exact proportions she had jotted down, the little annotations in the margins, more garlic next time, don't forget the heart in the broth. It was meticulous, loving. And it reminded him just how much she had cared not just for the shop, but for him. He paused, staring at a folded apron, the one she had always worn. He lifted it carefully, inhaling her faint scent. A lump rose in his throat. He had never known a mother, had never had someone who believed in him without reservation. Huang had been that, in her own way, strict, demanding, exacting but endlessly protective. He walked back to the main floor, letting his hands brush the walls, the shelves, the counter. Each touch anchored him, made him feel like he belonged, even as grief churned in his chest. He picked up a small bowl, turning it over in his hands, and set it down with care. It was a ritual, a promise. He would keep this place alive. He would honor her. A single tear traced down his cheek, and he didn't bother to wipe it. It was okay to feel, to mourn, to remember. He sank onto the stool behind the counter, the shop stretching around him, quiet and forgiving. He didn't know how long he stayed there, tracing the contours of every corner, committing everything to memory. When he finally stood, the shop felt less empty, not because anyone was here, but because he carried Huang's spirit with him. With a deep breath, He ran a hand across the newly painted sapphire walls, across the violet counter, and out to the sign above the protection of whispered the words softly, like a vow, I'll protect this. I'll protect everyone who comes here. I won't fail you, Huang. He walked to the front door, flipping the open sign one more time. The sunlight streamed in, cutting across the floor in sharp lines. For the first time in what felt like forever, Menma felt something fragile but solid settle inside him, a quiet determination, a tether to the world he was building. Huang was gone, but he would carry her legacy. He would keep this shop alive, even if it was just him against the silence, against the night, against everything that sought to steal what little joy he had left. And for now, that was enough. Mira and Zoey gasped in unison. What do you mean it's broken? They demanded, their voices overlapping. Just look. Rumi cried, panic cracking through her usual poise. She flung her arm toward the wide crystal window. The other two pressed forward. Their eyes widened. Above the town, the Han Moon, the shimmering gateway that separated their world from the demon realm, hung fractured. The once perfect circle of silver light was jagged, torn open as though struck by some unseen hand. From the fissures poured a vile red energy, pulsing and stitching, forcing the barrier back together in crooked, uneven lines. It writhed like veins across a wound, sealing but not healing. Zoey slapped her palm against the glass, her voice sharp with panic. We were so close. So close to finishing the Han Moon, to making it hold. How did it twist into this? She jabbed her finger toward the sky, as though sheer anger might force the corruption back. Myra's voice came quieter, steadier, though her grip on Zoe's wrist betrayed the tension running through her. Did you call Seline? I've tried, Rumi whispered. Her throat tightened as she lowered her hand, trembling. The red glow outside reflected in her eyes, making them look fever-bright. She isn't answering. And if she's silent, then I'm afraid she's just as lost as we are. For a moment, none of them spoke. The air vibrated with the low hum of the Hanmun's collapse, like the world itself was groaning. Outside, townsfolk gathered in the streets, pointing upward, their faces pale in the crimson light bleeding across the sky. If the Han Moon fell completely, the demon realm wouldn't just whisper at the edges of their world, it would tear straight through. Zoey was the first to snap back. Then what can we do? Mira drew in a breath. Maybe we can fix it by doing another tour. No, Rumi said immediately, her voice firm despite the tremor in it. Just a tour won't fix this. We need something bigger. Like what? Zoe's voice cracked. Their world tour had shaken the globe, it wasn't exactly small. They had only just survived it. Rumi smiled weakly, her eyes shining with tears. We're going to have to release the song. The song. Mira and Zoey gasped together. That was the one reserved for forging the Han Moon strong and permanent, not repairing whatever this monstrosity was becoming. We have to, Rumi said. We need every fan we can reach. Their voices, their energy, it's the only hope we have. Mira hesitated, then slowly extended her hand. Happy fans. Zoey pressed hers on top, eyes burning. Healthy Han Moon. Rumi added hers last. Their voices joined, soft at first, then stronger, until the chant became a vow. Happy fans. Healthy Han Moon. Together, they released the song. The room vibrated, the window panes rattling as their harmonies soared outward, flooding into the night. Across the globe, phones lit up as streams went live, fans screaming, crying, singing along. Their collective energy rippled upward, colliding with the fractured sky. The Han Moon shuddered. For one shining heartbeat, the red corruption recoiled and the gateway blazed pure silver once again, whole and perfect like before Menma's attack. But the moment shattered. The silver glow dimmed, hairline cracks reappearing, the red veins pulsing back through the wounds. The fissures weren't as wide now, but they were still there, bleeding corruption into the sky. 5 minutes later, the door slammed open. OMG, girls, the fans are going crazy. Bobby burst in, waving his phone. Notifications lit his screen like fireworks. We have to promo this tonight. The three of them stood in silence, staring out the window at the half-mended moon. Their song had made progress. The cracks were smaller, the silver stronger, but the barrier was far from fixed. For the fans, they all thought. But each carried a different reason deep inside. And beyond the barrier, in the demon realm's shadows, something stirred watching. Waiting. Jinma's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the fractured moon. Could he let this happen? The blonde demon had interfered, and now the moon was worse, more fortified, yet harder to penetrate. The gaps in it were tempting, easy enough to exploit, but the red energy stitching it together pulsed like living veins, warning that any approach could mean instant annihilation. His forces eradicated intruders without mercy, not even reforming could get through. A soft, unmistakable sound drifted through the air, a ukulele. Jinma's gaze snapped toward it. Perched above, a figure strummed lightly, humming a tune before speaking in a voice both calm and sharp. There once was a mighty demon king. Stop me if you've heard this one before. He was in total control. He feasted on souls. The world trembled when he roared. But then some hunters sang some songs. Now all he does is starve. Can't get at the souls, and his flame grows cold. Just a whisper in the dark. Jinma's fury ignited. You dare mock me with the voice I let you keep, he roared, flames surging violently, licking the fractured moon. The figure only smiled, strumming a few more chords. Not at all. Actually, I bring a solution to stop the hunters. Jinma laughed, a low, dangerous rumble. The hunters? They're nothing but a nuisance compared to the problems I face, boy. Jinu's eyes widened, disbelief clear. I thought. You thought wrong, Jinma interrupted, voice dripping with scorn. But why do you want to help? You're selfish. I want my memories erased, Jinu admitted, steady despite the tension crackling between them. Jinma paused, considering the weight of the request, then nodded. I need answers. Jinu, take whoever you need and get them. Jinu hesitated, gesturing toward the swirling, grotesque red energy above. The hunters? The blonde demon? Anything about how to bypass this? Understood, Jinu replied. Leave immediately, Jinma commanded, voice low but absolute. Jinu's crew appeared in a shimmer of red energy, a mix of familiar faces, each lethal and precise. In moments, they dissolved into the night, vanishing to execute the first phase of their plan. Jinma brooded, his gaze fixed on the moon. That I don't even know what the blonde demon looks like, he thought. He could track the energy, yes, but maybe not in the same way a regular demon like Jinu matter. Jinu will bring me answers or he will die. Simple. He let the flames around him ebb, his mind already spinning, calculating, anticipating. The moon pulsed ominously above, a fractured, bleeding beacon, and Jinma allowed himself a single, cold thought: everything is in motion now. Everything seemed to be going great for Rumi. The new release had blown up, fans went insane the moment it dropped. Streams soared overnight, the promotions rolled out smooth as clockwork, the charts climbed higher than any of them had expected. On the surface, it was perfect. A dream comeback. But the moon told a different story. It looked better, patched in places, its once violent fractures dulled to faint scars. From a distance, it almost looked healed. Almost. If you squinted from the right angle, you might even believe it was whole again. But anyone who had been there, anyone who had felt it break, could see it for what it truly was: a cracked shell barely holding together. The red energy was still there, crawling like veins through the sky, thin threads of living fire weaving themselves into a web that never stopped shifting. It wasn't just power. It wasn't natural. It felt alive. And worse, it felt like it was watching them. Every subtle shift, every twitch of that web carried the same sick pressure as eyes on the back of her neck. Even when she looked away, even when she tried to ignore it, that sensation lingered, an invisible hand pressing down on her spine. The hunters had tried everything to track it. Spells etched in salt and ash, rituals that burned into the air like brandings, even flight patrols that scoured the sky until their wings ached. Every time, the results were the same. Just as they got close, the web shifted, sliding like oil between their fingers, leading them into empty alleys and dead ends. The strangest part was watching from above. The moment they looked down from the sky, the whole thing dissolved into nothing, like smoke dispersing under a breeze, like it knew it was being watched. That thought haunted Rumi. Energy wasn't supposed to be aware. Power was meant to be wielded, channeled, predictable. But this was something else entirely. Something with intent. And still, Seline hadn't answered a single call. Days had bled into weeks with silence on her end. No texts, no messages, no word. At first, they brushed it off. Seline disappearing was nothing new. She had always been the type to vanish into training or research, leaving the rest of them stewing in worry until she popped back up like nothing had happened. But now even Mira and Zoey had stopped making excuses for her. The hunters didn't want to admit it, but every passing day added a new kind of weight. It wasn't just worry anymore, it was dread. The kind that sank into their bones and made every breath heavier. Rumi hated silence more than anything. Silence left too much room for questions. For fear. Well, can't focus on what we can't do, Rumi whispered to herself, brushing her hair back as she tied it up for rehearsal. All we can do is try. Her own words sounded thin, fragile. Like she didn't quite believe them herself. It was Bobby's idea to stage a live performance. Push the song harder, get it into everyone's mouths and ears, let the fans scream it into the sky until the Hanmoon itself had to notice. Normally, Zoey and Mira would complain endlessly about doing extra work on their supposed breaks. But not this time. Not one complaint. Even they seemed to understand the song wasn't just another single. It was a lifeline. And strangely, the demons seemed quieter than usual. That should have been good news. Instead, it felt wrong. The world had gone too still, like the eye of a storm, and everyone knew what came after that. Strange, Rumi thought as she walked across the empty stage, the massive lights glaring down at her. You'd think a fractured Hanmoon would be a demon's playground. So where are they hiding? The arena smelled faintly of metal and dust, the scent of a stadium gone cold without fans. The silence carried its own weight, pressing against her ears until it felt suffocating. Rumi gripped the mic, feeling the cool metal against her palm, and waited for the music to cue. The first notes hit, echoing off the empty seats. She sang, and for a moment, just a moment, everything felt normal. The lyrics rolled off her tongue, her voice steady, almost strong. She let herself breathe, just enough to hope. But halfway through the chorus, the sound cracked. Not bad, just a little slip, the kind she could laugh off if anyone noticed. She cleared her throat and kept going. But then it happened again. And again. Each time, sharper, harsher. Her throat tightened, her chest locked. Every breath dragged like it was being stolen halfway out. Her body wasn't keeping up. What's happening? She tried again, forcing the notes out, but the sound broke apart into a hoarse gasp. Her mind spun. Panic flooded in, sharp and fast. What if the Hanmoon never heals? What if I stay like this forever, half human, half trapped, never whole again? What if I can't sing? What if I can't fight? What if I'm useless? Her stomach twisted. Her hands trembled around the mic, knuckles white as she tried to push harder. We are hunters, voice strong, and I belie. Nothing. A raw croak. Then silence. The emptiness that followed hit harder than any crowd's judgment. The room echoed with her failure, her heartbeat pounding loud enough to drown the music. She tried again. Once. Twice. 5 more times. Each attempt worse than the last. Her voice cracked, fell apart, until nothing came out at all. Her throat burned, raw and useless. Tears blurred her vision. Her legs felt weak, every breath a struggle. Her body betrayed her in front of the very stage she'd once ruled. The thought pressed against her ribs like a blade, if I can't sing, I'm nothing. The tears stung hotter with every step. She could already imagine the crowd out there, the people chanting her name, waiting to hear her voice pierce the air the way it always had. And the truth that she couldn't even make a sound hit her like a stone to the chest. She couldn't take it. Before anyone could stop her, Rumi turned and bolted, running off stage, stumbling up the stairs with her breath shaking and tears hot against her cheeks. Bobby froze in place, his jaw tight. His mind jumped straight to chaos, the concert, the fans pounding on the stadium doors already, the promises he'd made. He could hear the dull roar of the crowd outside, waiting, restless, the walls rattling with their chants. And now this. Zoey and Mira didn't even argue. They looked at Bobby, faces pale, voices flat. We'll have to cancel. Bobby's chest clenched, anger mixing with fear. He hated the thought, hated the weakness it implied, but the truth was written in front of him, Rumi couldn't sing. Not like this. He swallowed hard and nodded. Fine, he muttered, though his fists shook at his sides. No one was going to ruin his girls. Unseen, there was a shadow watching all of this. He lingered at the far edge of the darkened stadium, half hidden against the black beams, eyes glinting faint red in the stage light. He smiled faintly, satisfied, before slipping away into nothing. A moment later, he reappeared in a safe house where the rest of the Saja boys were gathered. Well? What did they say, VERYYYY? Their leader Juno asked, leaning forward in his chair. The now identified VERYYYY soon to be renamed Abby for Juno's first plan answered quickly, his tone sharp, dutiful. The Hunter's lead singer seems to have lost her voice. We probably have at least 2 weeks before they can perform at the Idol Award and possibly fix the honeymoon. The others shifted uneasily, but VERYYYY's gaze never wavered. He was the first to acknowledge Juno as the leader, and he carried that loyalty in every word. Why can't we just kill them and be over with it? Shu or Baby Saja, as the fans would soon call him said, draped carelessly across the couch. His voice was slow, lazy, but his eyes burned with that dangerous, restless spark. It'll be easier. Even if we could kill them, it would bring all of the other hunters from around the world down on our heads, Giant said, blowing his gray hair out of his eyes. His tone was calm, almost bored, but there was steel underneath it. He was always the one reminding them of the bigger picture, the one who thought 2 steps ahead, even when it made him sound like a nag. No, Shu. We are not gonna attempt to harm them. Not yet, Juno said harshly, his voice cutting clean through the room. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the air itself seemed to shift like gravity bending toward him. That's not our orders anyway. He finished the thought with finality, like a door slamming shut. Shu groaned dramatically and rolled his eyes, throwing his arm over his face. Yeah, I know. But his foot tapped against the edge of the couch, restless. He lived for the fight, for the thrill, and waiting never sat well with him. The safe house had gone quiet again, heavy with tension, when the silence cracked literally. A low pop echoed through the air, followed by a coil of smoke that unfurled in the center of the room. The smell of ash and sulfur cut through the musty air. Inu appeared in the middle of it, tall and sharp, with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. The smoke curled around his boots before vanishing. Inu, Juno said, leaning back slightly but never losing that sharp focus. Just the man I wanted to see. What's the news? Did you find the demon? Negative. There seems to be no trace of him. I'll be checking downtown Seoul near the darker parts tomorrow. Juno nodded once, decisive. Shu, Jian join him tomorrow. VERYYYY, keep watching the hunters but don't be found. Ryuk gave a curt nod, his posture rigid like a soldier taking orders. But before anyone else could speak, Jinu stiffened. His eyes rolled back white, his breath choking in his throat. Then, violently, he was yanked backward as if hooked by an invisible chain. The floor split beneath him in a jagged crack, glowing with hellfire, and he was ripped screaming into the void. He hit the ground on the other side with a bone-jarring thud, his palms scraping against blackened stone. The underworld pressed in at once, the air tasted of rust and ash, shadows writhed like living things. From the smoke, Ji-Ma stepped forward. His eyes burned like twin coals, his voice a slow, venomous drawl. "What's the news, Jinu?" Jinu forced himself to his knees, bowing his head low, though his jaw clenched with frustration. "We are tightening the circle as we speak. We will find the demon and ruin the hunters soon." Ji-Ma's form loomed closer, a towering shadow that bent the space around him. "Do not fail me, Jinu. I'm not a patient man." The air shuddered with his words. And just like that, Ji-Ma flung him back. The underworld dissolved in a hiss of fire and smoke and Jinu's body slammed onto the safe house floor. The others jumped back, the scorch-marked ground beneath him still glowing faintly where the crack had opened. Jinu sucked in a harsh breath, sweat dripping down his temple. For a heartbeat, no one dared move. Rumi bolted up the stairs, her breaths coming ragged and sharp. Not her voice. Anything but that. Her chest heaved as she yanked the golden costume jacket off, her trembling fingers fumbling at the zipper of her shirt. She dragged the fabric down and froze. The patterns, those cursed marks, had climbed higher. Crawling, snaking across her collarbone, now etching into the soft curve of her neck. Her throat closed around a sob. "No, no, 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 this can't be happening," she cried, her voice raw with terror. She stumbled upward 2 steps at a time, nearly tripping, desperate to outrun the horror spreading through her own skin. Her hand slammed against the hatch door, flinging it open with a metallic screech. Cold night air rushed her face as she staggered onto the rooftop. Rumi forced air into her lungs, pushed sound past her trembling lips. "Hunter's voice is strong and I know I belie." The note cracked. Broke. Died. Her throat betrayed her, shredding what should have been power into something pitiful. A whimper escaped as she tried again, clawing at the last shred of hope. The same result. Silence. "No," she screamed, and the sound tore out of her not as music but as rage demon energy bursting free before she could stop it. The Han moon reacted. The broken crimson web that had taunted them for days shivered violently, 1,000 threads twitching like nerves under a blade. Then, impossibly, one strand shimmered, its venomous red bled into brilliant sapphire, glowing as though alive. It lifted from the fractured web, curling upward toward her. Rumi's tears blurred her sight, but the glow burned through the haze. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Calling. Beckoning. She knew it was reckless. She knew it was foolish. But she moved, her feet carrying her forward without thought. Her soul clung to that one blue lifeline as though it could save her. The strand darted away, weaving through the city, and she chased it, her chest heaving, lungs burning, her voice lost but her desperation louder than any song she had ever sung. Through the blur of neon lights and soul's shadows, the glow led her to a ramen shop. Not just any shop. This one burned in color walls a sapphire blue, edges kissed in fiery crimson, its sign marked with a single, radiant blue flower. The protection of innocence. The glowing strand ended abruptly, fading into the sign. She skidded to a stop, gasping, confusion clawing at her chest. What now? Why here? Before she could even think, the kitchen door creaked open behind her. A blond man stepped out, apron still tied loose at his waist. He froze when he saw her, brow furrowed, his presence calm but weighted, like something ancient hiding behind casual skin. "Excuse me, miss," he said softly, his voice steady as he reached out. His hand landed gently on her shoulder. Rumi turned. Her brown eyes wild, rimmed with tears met his violet, steady and unreadable. The world seemed to fall silent, the fractured Han-moon pulsing faintly above them, as if holding its breath. It felt like time had stopped between them. The hum of the city outside, the faint sizzle from the ramen pots, even the soft clink of utensils, all of it disappeared, leaving only the two of them suspended in a fragile, suffocating bubble. The blonde man's eyes flicked to her patterns, crawling up her neck like living fire. The corner of his mouth tried to curl into a casual smile, but it faltered instantly. His whole demeanor shifted, a subtle tightening of his shoulders, a cold precision replacing the casual calm. There was something in the way he moved, something that radiated authority and danger, that made the air itself seem heavier around them. Rumi's heart slammed in her chest, each beat echoing loud enough to drown the distant neon buzz outside. She wanted to speak, to explain, to scream, but her voice had betrayed her, gone, stolen, silenced. All she could do was freeze, caught in the invisible tether of his gaze. He leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed the curve of her ear. She felt the heat, the sharp edge of danger pressing against her skin. His hand moved slowly, deliberately, shifting her out of the way as though clearing a path. To anyone else in the shop, it would have looked like nothing more than a man maneuvering through a crowded space. But the words he whispered froze her in place, sharp as a blade against her mind. "I don't know if Ji-ma sent you here," he said, his voice low, steady, dangerous, "but if you lay one finger on anyone here I'll kill you." The words didn't just threaten her, they landed in her chest like jagged shards. She could feel every muscle in her body tighten, every nerve screaming. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The patterns on her skin prickled as if responding to the threat, crawling in uncomfortable ripples across her neck and collarbone. He can feel it. He can see it. He knows. And yet, beneath the threat, beneath the cold precision in his eyes, there was a pause, something almost human, almost hesitant. As if he were measuring her, weighing the danger against a flicker of something else. Rumi's knees felt weak. The room seemed to shrink around her. The blue glow of the shop's sign outside spilled through the windows, painting the walls and their faces in ghostly light. Every shadow seemed to bend toward him, every flicker of movement magnified in her heightened senses. Her mind spun. Part of her screamed to flee, to curl into herself and disappear, but another part, the part she didn't like to admit even existed, wanted to reach toward him. That part was drawn to the confidence, the danger, the raw, untamed power that radiated from Menma like heat from a furnace. And beneath that, deeper still, was the pull of the Han-moon. The strand of sapphire energy that had led her here still lingered in her mind, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. It wasn't just guiding her, it was testing her. Calling her. Demanding something from her she couldn't yet understand. Fear warred with fascination. Self-preservation clashed with curiosity. Her chest tightened with the knowledge that one wrong move could get her killed or worse, unleash something inside herself she couldn't control. She wanted to speak, to beg, to explain herself, but her throat refused. The energy in her veins hummed, alive, reacting to the presence of Menma and the shard of the Han-moon she'd carried with her. She felt it thrumming against her chest, tugging at her, whispering a promise she couldn't ignore. Every instinct screamed at her to move, but she was rooted, trapped by fear, curiosity, and the undeniable weight of his presence. Her brown eyes darted, trying to read him, to find some hint of who he really was, what he wanted. And yet, in the stillness, the unspoken tension, she realized something terrifying: she couldn't look away. She didn't want to. The world outside, the streets, the neon, the fractured Han-moon faded until it was just the two of them. His violet eyes held hers like a tether, pulling her forward even as every rational thought shouted at her to run. And in that impossible, suspended moment, Rumi understood one thing with chilling clarity: this encounter wasn't just about danger. It was about choice. Would she fight it? Would she run? Or would she follow, letting the energy and this mysterious, terrifying man lead her into something she couldn't yet see? The answer wasn't clear. But her body, her pulse, the very patterns crawling over her skin, all whispered the same thing: she was already on the path. The tense moment shattered abruptly. A loud, slurred voice called out from the far end of the shop, "Oi, Menma. You got any money for some liquor?" Menma's expression flipped instantly, the sharp edge melting into a laid-back, almost playful smile. "Een Tsubaki, don't make me call your mother on you," he yelled back, his voice carrying easily across the room. The entire shop erupted in laughter, a collective, knowing sound that seemed to expect this banter between the ramen owner and the big man. "Oi, Menma, there's no need to do that. Let's not be hasty now, it was just an innocent question," someone called, trying to smooth over the tension. "There's nothing innocent about you, and you know it. If I feed your indulgences, we both know I'm gonna have to carry you out of here." Menma's voice was playful but firm as he set fresh bowls in front of the eagerly waiting kids at the bar. He ruffled a small boy's hair. "Eat up, Tachi. Your mom's about to get off work in an hour." The little boy's eyes lit up at the free bowl, his short legs kicking as he sat on the stool, not quite tall enough to reach the floor. "Thanks, Mr. Menma," he said happily, slurping noodles with gusto. "Of course, bud. And when you're done, go in the back office and finish your homework." Menma chuckled as Tachi slumped in contentment. "If you need help again, I'm willing to help you, but only if you finish your food fast." The boy cheered quietly, more slurping following as he devoured his noodles. Menma's gaze flicked back to Rumi, noticing her still standing there, tears not yet dry. "Would you like a bowl of ramen?" "First one's always on the house," he offered, his tone softening but still careful, measured. Rumi could only nod, too overwhelmed to speak. Menma sighed, a small, genuine exhale that seemed to ease the tension slightly. "There's a bathroom upstairs," he said softly, handing her the keys. "It's private, but you can go in." Rumi clutched the keys, the cool metal pressing against her palm. She could feel her racing pulse slow ever so slightly in the warmth of the shop and the strange, grounding presence of Menma. It wasn't safety, she knew that, but it was something she could cling to for now. She went through the door and stepped upstairs, her legs still trembling from the stairway dash. The space was modest, practical, an office tucked into the back of the building. Not lavish, not pristine, but clean. Sturdy furniture lined the walls, each piece smelling faintly of polished wood, with a faint scent of old paper and faint incense lingering in the air. To her left, a small bathroom offered a sink, a mirror, and a little counter space. Compact and functional, it wasn't the kind of space you'd call private in the sense of being hidden, but it was more than enough for her needs. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Slygold on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video, till then, goodbye.